The maid's scream echoed through the fifth-floor hallway of the Lotus Garden Hotel just after 11 in the morning. Other guests would later describe it as the kind of sound that makes your blood stop, the kind that tells you something is deeply, irreversibly wrong. By the time hotel security reached room 4112, the young woman with the cleaning cart was sitting against the opposite wall, her hands shaking so violently she couldn't hold her phone to call downstairs. The door to the room stood open, revealing only a sliver of the scene inside. A foot, pale against the patterned carpet, perfectly still. Sarah Mitchell had been in Vietnam for 3 days. The investigation would later establish a timeline, a sequence of events that seemed impossible to those who knew her. Sarah's phone, recovered from the nightstand, showed her last message sent at 8:47 the previous evening. Just 6 words to her sister Emma, back in Portland. 6 words that would haunt Emma for the rest of her life. "I think I made a mistake." After that, nothing. No calls, no social media activity. The phone's battery had died sometime around midnight. The door to room 412 had been locked from the inside. The window was sealed shut. And Sarah Mitchell, 28 years old, 5'6" with auburn hair and a small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident, was gone. But to understand how Sarah ended up in that hotel room in Ho Chi Minh City's District 1, in a building she'd never planned to stay in, meeting a man who didn't exist, we have to go back 3 months. Back to a rainy Tuesday evening in Portland, when Sarah was sitting in her small apartment on Hawthorne Boulevard, scrolling through her phone with a glass of wine she wasn't really drinking. Sarah's life at 28 was not unhappy exactly. It was careful, measured. She worked as a freelance graphic designer, mostly branding packages for small businesses, and the occasional website redesign. The work was steady enough to cover rent and groceries, irregular enough to make her anxious about money. Her apartment was a studio with good light, filled with plants she managed not to kill, and furniture from IKEA she'd assembled herself. She had friends, though she'd noticed how they were all gradually pairing off, getting engaged, moving in with partners. She had her sister Emma, 3 years younger, who called her every Sunday without fail. She had a routine, morning coffee at the cafe 2 blocks down, afternoon walks when the work got tedious, evening yoga videos she did maybe twice a week. What Sarah didn't have, 6 months after her breakup with Marcus, was any desire to date again. Marcus had been safe, boring if she was honest. An accountant who talked about tax code over dinner and who had, after 2 years together, admitted he didn't see a future with her. No big fight, no dramatic revelation. Just a quiet ending that left Sarah feeling more embarrassed than heartbroken. Embarrassed that she'd spent 2 years with someone who'd been planning his exit the whole time. Embarrassed that she hadn't seen it coming. So when her friend Jessica suggested she try one of those international dating apps, Sarah had laughed. Hard pass. She wasn't ready for local dating, let alone whatever international meant. But Jessica was persistent in that way close friends are when they think they know what's best for you. "It's not about finding the one," she'd said. "It's about remembering you're interesting, that people want to talk to you. Think of it like making friends. Pen pals, remember pen pals." Sarah downloaded the app on a whim. She told herself it was just to make Jessica stop bringing it up. She used a photo from her cousin's wedding, the one where her hair had cooperated and the lighting made her skin look golden. She filled out the profile half-heartedly. Graphic designer. Portland likes hiking, even though she rarely went. Loves travel, even though her passport had 3 stamps total. She set her preferences to browse globally, not because she actually wanted to meet someone across the world, but because it felt safer somehow. Less real, less immediate. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. She'd open the app occasionally, scroll through profiles of men from Malaysia and Argentina and South Africa, all of them suspiciously attractive, all of them with bios that sounded like they'd been translated through Google. She didn't message anyone, didn't respond to the few generic hellos she received. The app became like a screensaver, something to look at when her mind wandered from work. Then, on a Thursday evening in late September, she matched with David Nguyen. His first message wasn't like the others. No, "Hey beautiful," or "You have a nice smile." Instead, he'd referenced something specific in her profile. "You mentioned you're learning to make sourdough bread. How's that going? I've been trying for months and mine always comes out like a brick." Sarah smiled at her phone. She had mentioned sourdough, a pandemic hobby she'd mostly abandoned. The fact that he'd noticed, that he'd read her profile carefully enough to comment on something other than her appearance, felt refreshing. She wrote back, "Honestly, mine too. I think I killed my starter 3 times before giving up." "Maybe bread just isn't meant for everyone," his response came quickly. "Maybe bread has standards. Maybe we're just not sophisticated enough for it yet. They messaged back and forth that evening. Light conversation. Easy. He told her he was Vietnamese American, born in California, but his family had moved back to Ho Chi Minh City when he was in college. He'd stayed in the US for a while, working in tech in San Francisco, but eventually followed his family back to Vietnam to help run their export business. Textiles mostly. Boring stuff, he said, but it pays the bills and I get to travel. Sarah told him about her design work, about Portland, about how she'd always wanted to travel more but somehow never got around to it. There was something comfortable about the conversation, maybe because of the distance. He was 7,000 miles away, 13 hours ahead. There was no pressure, no possibility of him suggesting they meet for coffee this weekend. It was just talking. Over the next few weeks, talking became part of her routine. Good morning messages from David waiting when she woke up because he was already in his tomorrow. Voice messages she'd listen to while making dinner, his accent slight but noticeable, his English perfect with occasional phrasing that reminded her he'd grown up bilingual. He sent photos of Ho Chi Minh City, the morning markets with their towers of fruit, the motorbike traffic that looked like organized chaos, his apartment building at sunset, the windows reflecting gold. By mid-October, they'd progressed to video calls. The first one, Sarah had been nervous in a way that surprised her. She'd changed her shirt twice, worried about the lighting in her apartment, felt ridiculous for caring. When David's face appeared on her screen, she was struck by how much he looked like his photos. That might sound obvious, but Sarah had heard enough dating horror stories to know it wasn't always the case. He was handsome in an understated way. Dark hair, warm eyes, a smile that reached them. His apartment in the background looked modern, minimalist. Through the window behind him, she could see the city lights starting to come on. They talked for an hour that first call, then 2 hours. Then it became a regular thing, twice a week, sometimes more. David asked about her day, actually listened to her answers, remembered details she'd mentioned in passing. When she told him about a difficult client, he brought it up the next week, asking if it had resolved. When she mentioned her sister Emma was going through a rough patch at work, he asked how she was doing. He shared parts of his life too. His parents, retired now, who he had dinner with every Sunday. His frustration with the family business, feeling obligated to continue something he hadn't chosen. His own failed relationship from a few years back. A woman who'd wanted him to move back to the States and couldn't understand why he felt torn. Sarah found herself thinking about him at odd moments, wondering what he was doing, checking her phone more often than she wanted to admit. Jessica noticed, teased her gently about her mysterious international boyfriend. "He's not my boyfriend," Sarah insisted. "We're just talking." But she knew it was becoming more than that. The way her stomach flipped when she saw his name on her screen. The way she'd started planning her days around their calls. The way she caught herself imagining what it would be like to actually meet him. In November, David brought it up first. "I know this is crazy," he said during one of their calls, "but I've been thinking about flying to Portland. I have some business I could schedule in Seattle. I could come see you, actually meet you in person." Sarah's immediate reaction was panic and excitement in equal measure. The panic won. She deflected, said they should think about it, that it felt rushed. David didn't push. "Okay," he said, "no pressure. I really like talking to you, Sarah. I wanted you to know that." A week later, Sarah surprised herself. What if I came there instead? The words were out before she'd fully thought them through. To Vietnam, I mean. "I've never been to Asia. You could show me around." There was a pause. David's face on the screen looked genuinely surprised. "Are you serious?" "I think so," Sarah laughed, nervous. I've been saying I want to travel more. Why not actually do it?" Another pause. Then David smiled, but something in his expression seemed hesitant. "That would be amazing. But Sarah, it's a long way, expensive. Are you sure? I don't want you to feel like you have to." His hesitation made Sarah more certain. It was the same reverse psychology that had worked on her all her life, though she didn't recognize it as such. When someone told her not to do something for her own good, she immediately wanted to prove she could handle it. "I'm sure," she said. "I want to. Unless you don't want me to visit? No, I do. God, I really do. I want to make sure you're comfortable. That you feel safe." They spent the next call planning. Sarah would come for 10 days in early December. David would take time off work. He'd show her the city. Maybe they'd travel to the coast or up to the mountains. He'd book her a hotel, somewhere nice. "No," Sarah insisted. "I'll book my own hotel. I'm an independent woman, remember?" David had laughed. "Okay, independent woman. But let me at least plan the itinerary." Sarah told Emma about the trip over their Sunday call. Emma's reaction was immediate and predictable. You're flying to Vietnam to meet a guy you've never met in person. Sarah, that's insane. It's not insane. People do this all the time. People get murdered doing this all the time, Emma countered. You don't know this guy. Not really. You know what he's told you. You know what he's shown you. Sarah felt defensive. I know him better than I knew Marcus after our first date. We've been talking for 2 months. Video calls. He's real, Emma. I'm not saying he's not real. I'm saying he's a stranger. A stranger in a foreign country. What if something happens? Nothing's going to happen. I'll have my phone. I'll check in with you every day. I'll send you all his information. His address, his phone number, everything. Emma sighed, the sound crackling through the phone. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you'll leave. I promise. Sarah booked her flight 2 days later, December 3rd through December 13th. Round trip from Portland to Ho Chi Minh City with a layover in Seoul. The ticket cost more than she usually spent in 2 months, but she'd been saving, and this felt important somehow. Proof that she wasn't just going through the motions of life. Proof that she could be spontaneous, brave. She told her clients she'd be out of the country, finished up projects ahead of schedule. She bought travel insurance, though she skimmed the fine print. She got the recommended vaccines. She bought a guidebook for Vietnam and read it cover to cover, learning phrases in Vietnamese she'd probably never use. She bought new clothes, practical things for a tropical climate, and one dress that made her feel beautiful. David sent her messages every day leading up to the trip, counting down, getting excited, making plans. He sent her a list of restaurants they had to try, photos of places he wanted to take her. He seemed as nervous as she was, which was endearing. What if I'm boring in person? He messaged one night. What if we run out of things to talk about? That's impossible, Sarah wrote back. We've talked for hours about literal bread making. I think we'll manage. The night before her flight, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept getting up to check her suitcase, making sure she'd packed everything, her passport, her medication, the adapter for her electronics. She'd printed out her hotel reservation, even though she had it on her phone. The hotel wasn't the upscale place David had suggested. She'd chosen something mid-range in District 1, wanting to maintain her independence, prove she could handle this herself. At 3 in the morning, Emma called. I know you're awake, she said. Sarah smiled in the darkness of her bedroom. Yeah. Last chance to back out. I'm not backing out. Okay. Emma's voice softened. Then have an amazing time. Send me pictures. Call me when you land. Text me every single day or I'm calling the embassy. I will. And Sarah? Yeah? If he's different than what you expect, if anything feels off, trust your gut. Please. I will, Sarah said again, meaning it. She hung up and finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, her packed suitcase by the door like a promise she couldn't take back. In 12 hours, she'd be in the air. In 24, she'd be on the other side of the world. In 3 days, she'd be dead. But on that last night in her Portland apartment, surrounded by her plants and her carefully assembled furniture and the life she'd built that felt increasingly small, Sarah Mitchell believed she was flying towards something real, something that might finally fill the careful, measured spaces she'd constructed around herself. She believed David Nguyen was waiting for her, that his smile was genuine, that his hesitation about her visit was protective concern rather than calculated manipulation. She believed she was safe. That was her first mistake. The humidity hit Sarah the moment she stepped out of Tan Son Nhat International Airport. It was like walking into a warm, wet blanket, the air so thick she could almost taste it. December, in Ho Chi Minh City, she'd learned from her guidebook, was the dry season, but dry was apparently a relative term. Within seconds, her carefully chosen travel outfit, linen pants and a cotton blouse, was clinging to her skin. She checked her phone, 7:32 p.m. local time. Her body insisted it was 4:32 in the morning, Portland time. She'd been traveling for nearly 20 hours, the layover in Seoul longer than expected due to a delayed connection. She felt grimy and exhausted, and disoriented in the way that only international travel can make you feel, like you've been peeled out of your own timeline and dropped somewhere the rules don't quite apply. David's last message, sent while she was somewhere over the Pacific, said he'd meet her at arrivals. She scanned the crowd of people holding signs, drivers and tour guides and families waiting for loved ones. The faces blurred together. She didn't see him. Her phone buzzed. David, I'm so sorry. Emergency at the warehouse. One of our shipments got flagged at customs and I have to be here to sort it out. I sent a driver for you. His name is Min. He'll have a sign with your name. Sarah's stomach dropped with disappointment. She'd been imagining this moment for weeks. The first time seeing him in person. The awkwardness that would melt into familiarity. The hug. She'd thought about that hug an embarrassing amount. She typed back, "Oh, okay. Is everything all right?" "Just bureaucracy. I'll explain later. I'm really sorry, Sarah. I wanted to be there. I'll come to your hotel as soon as I can. Probably around 9. "It's fine," she lied. "See you soon." She found Min easily enough. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-20s, holding a printed sign that said Sarah RMIT Settle in careful block letters. He smiled when she approached, took her suitcase without asking, and gestured toward the exit. His English seemed limited. He said hotel and 1 hour and traffic and not much else. The drive into the city was overwhelming in a way Sarah wasn't prepared for. Motorbikes everywhere, weaving between cars with inches to spare. Whole families balanced on single bikes, a child sandwiched between parents, sometimes even a dog perched on the seat. The honking was constant but somehow not aggressive, more like a language she didn't understand. Buildings crowded together, narrow and tall, their facades a mix of faded French colonial architecture and modern glass. Neon signs and Vietnamese characters she couldn't read. Street vendors selling food she couldn't identify. Everything was color and motion and noise. Min drove in silence, occasionally glancing at her in the rearview mirror. She tried to make conversation once or twice. "How long have you worked for David?" No response. "Is the traffic always like this?" A shrug. After a while, she gave up and stared out the window, trying to orient herself. The guidebook had made District 1 sound compact and walkable, the tourist heart of the city. But in the darkness, with exhaustion blurring her vision, everything looked the same. When they finally pulled up to a hotel, Sarah's confusion sharpened into something closer to concern. This wasn't the Lotus Garden hotel she'd booked. The building was smaller, older, the sign flickering slightly. Min was already getting her suitcase from the trunk. "Wait," she said. "This isn't right. I'm staying at the Lotus Garden." Min looked at her blankly. She pulled out her phone, showed him the reservation. He shook his head, pointed at the building in front of them, said something in Vietnamese she didn't understand. Sarah's phone buzzed. David again. "Did Min get you to the hotel okay? I had to change your reservation last minute. The Lotus Garden had a plumbing issue. Whole 3rd floor flooded. This place is actually nicer, more local. Trust me." She looked at the hotel again. A couple of locals were smoking outside the entrance. The lobby visible through the glass doors looked clean enough but dated. This wasn't nicer than the Lotus Garden, not even close. But she was exhausted. She was in a foreign country, and David had a reasonable explanation. A plumbing issue. That could happen anywhere. "Yeah, I'm here," she typed. "See you at 9. Can't wait." The room was on the 5th floor. Small but clean, a double bed with a floral comforter, a window that looked out onto an alley, the air conditioning unit rattling but functional. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed and felt the full weight of her exhaustion. She should shower, unpack, eat something. Instead, she lay back and closed her eyes, just for a minute. She woke to knocking. Disoriented, she grabbed for her phone 9:47 p.m. She'd been asleep for over an hour. The knocking continued, patient and steady. She stumbled to the door, checked the peephole. "David?" She opened the door, and there he was. Actually there. 3-dimensional, real. Taller than she'd imagined from the video calls, maybe 6'1". He was wearing jeans and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly damp like he'd showered recently. And he was smiling. That same smile she'd seen on her screen dozens of times. But better somehow. Warmer. "Hi," he said. "Hi," Sarah said, suddenly aware of how she must look. Rumpled. Hair probably sticking up. Still wearing her travel clothes. David stepped forward and hugged her. It was brief, almost formal, but solid. He smelled like cologne and something else. Maybe cigarette smoke, though she'd never seen him smoke. When he pulled back, his hands stayed on her shoulders for a moment. "You made it," he said. "I'm so sorry about the airport. About the hotel. Everything's been chaos today." "It's okay," Sarah said, and meant it. The disappointment from earlier was already fading. He was here now. That's what mattered. They went to dinner at a rooftop restaurant a few blocks away. The kind of place with string lights and a view of the city sprawling in every direction. Motorbikes like glowing ants on the streets below. David ordered for both of them, rattling off Vietnamese to the waiter with an ease that reminded Sarah just how foreign she was here. The food came in waves. Spring rolls. Something with lemongrass and chili that made her eyes water. It was delicious and overwhelming. David asked about her flight, her first impressions of the city, whether she was tired. He was attentive, leaning forward when she talked, making eye contact. Everything she'd liked about their video calls, but amplified by proximity. She asked about his day, The customs issue. He waved it off. Boring work stuff. Let's not waste time on that. I want to hear about you. But there were small things. His phone kept buzzing. He'd glance at it, decline the call, set it face down on the table. After the fourth time Sarah asked if he needed to get that, he shook his head. Just my business partner. He doesn't understand the concept of after hours. Then he turned the phone off entirely, made a show of it. See, you have my full attention. When Sarah mentioned wanting to video call Emma tomorrow to let her know she'd arrived safely, David's expression shifted for just a second. Something tightened around his eyes. Of course, he said, though the internet at your hotel is pretty terrible. Maybe wait until we get some good photos together? Show her you're having an amazing time, not just sitting in a hotel room. It made sense. Sarah nodded. She didn't notice how he'd just talked her out of the one thing she'd promised Emma, immediate contact. By the time they left the restaurant, it was nearly midnight. David walked her back to the hotel, but didn't come inside. I should let you sleep, he said. You must be exhausted. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. We'll do the whole tourist thing, markets, temples, all of it. What about your work? Sarah asked. I told you, I'm taking time off. You're more important. He kissed her then. Light, almost tentative, his hand cupping the side of her face. It was nice. It felt like a beginning. When he pulled away, he was smiling. I'm really glad you're here, Sarah. Me too, she said. She watched him walk away, disappearing into the street traffic, then went up to her room. She meant to call Emma, but it was early morning in Portland, and she didn't want to wake her. She sent a text instead. Arrived safe. David is great. Hotel is fine. We'll call tomorrow. Then she showered, washing away 20 hours of travel, and fell into bed. The air conditioning rattled. Outside, the city hummed with noise that never quite stopped. She fell asleep thinking this was the start of something good. Day 2 started with David knocking on her door at 8 in the morning. Sarah, still foggy with jet lag, threw on clothes and tried to make herself presentable. He had coffee for her, already sweetened the way she liked it, and a smile that made her forget she'd barely slept. They spent the day sightseeing. Benthan Market first, a sprawling maze of stalls selling everything from silk scarves to fake designer bags to bizarre fruits Sarah had never seen. David guided her through with a hand on her lower back, steering her away from vendors who called out in English. Too touristy, he said. I'll show you the real places later. Sarah noticed they avoided other Western tourists. When she pointed to a group of backpackers examining lacquerware, suggesting they might know good places to visit, David shook his head. Trust me, you don't want to follow the tourist crowds. You'll just see the manufactured version of Vietnam. I want to show you the authentic experience. It sounded reasonable. Romantic even. Sarah didn't question it. They visited the Notre Dame Cathedral Basilica, currently under renovation but still impressive with its red brick and twin bell towers. The central post office with its arched windows and colonial grandeur. David took photos of her in front of each landmark, but when she suggested a selfie of them together, he hesitated. I hate how I look in photos, he said. Let's wait until we're somewhere really special. Around noon, David made a suggestion. Let's do a digital detox day. Just be present, you know? Experience things without the filter of a screen. Sarah laughed. I'm not that bad with my phone, I know, but humor me. When's the last time you went a whole day without checking social media or email? She couldn't remember. Okay, she said. Challenge accepted. Great. Leave your phone at the hotel tonight. Tomorrow, we'll just exist. No distractions. At the time, it sounded romantic, spontaneous. Sarah agreed easily. She didn't think about how it would cut her off from Emma, from any way of calling for help if she needed it, from her maps and translation apps and the digital safety net she'd been relying on in a country where she couldn't read the signs or speak the language. That evening, back at the hotel, David asked to see her passport and wallet. I want to book us a surprise trip, he said. Ha ha, Long Bay maybe, or Dalat, but I need your information to make the reservations. Sarah hesitated. Every travel safety article she'd ever read said never give anyone your passport. But David wasn't a stranger on the street. This was David. She'd been talking to him for months. She'd flown 7,000 miles to see him. She opened her bag and handed them over. He photographed the passport with his phone, flipped through her wallet. You should really use the hotel safe for this stuff, he said. It's not safe to carry around. I will, Sarah said, when you give it back. He did, but she noticed he'd taken photos of her credit cards too. For emergencies, he explained when he saw her looking. In case we need to book something quickly. That night, his demeanor changed. They were in her hotel room. She'd ordered room service. David had been charming all day but now seemed tense. He kept looking at his phone even though he'd told her he turned it off. When Sarah changed into a dress for dinner, something sleeveless and blue, he looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. "That's what you're wearing?" he asked. Sarah looked down at herself. "What's wrong with it?" "Nothing. It's just revealing. You'll get a lot of attention. It's not revealing, it's just a dress. I'm just saying, men here, they'll look at you. I don't like it." Sarah felt the first real twist of discomfort. "We're not even going anywhere. We're staying in. I know." David ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry. I care about you, maybe too much. I get protective." Then he apologized, profusely, said he was falling for her harder than he'd expected and it scared him. Said he was afraid of losing her. Said he knew he was being irrational. Sarah, who'd spent 2 years with emotionally unavailable Marcus, who'd been told she was too much or not enough or impossible to read, found herself comforted by David's intensity. At least he cared. At least he felt something. She told him it was okay, that she understood, that she was falling for him too. He left around 10, said he had to check on something at his apartment, promised to be back first thing in the morning for their digital detox day. Sarah walked him to the door. He kissed her harder this time, almost desperate. "See you tomorrow," he said. After he left, Sarah sat on the bed feeling unsettled in a way she couldn't name. She picked up her phone. No messages from Emma. She should call her. But it was early morning in Portland again, and David was right about the hotel internet being terrible. The connection kept dropping. She sent a quick message instead. "Everything's great. About to do a no-phone day tomorrow. Very zen. We'll call after." Then she opened her banking app to check her balance. Just routine. Her checking account looked normal, but when she clicked over to her savings, her heart stopped. The balance showed 847. It should have shown 6,200. She refreshed. Same number. She checked her recent transactions. 3 withdrawals she didn't recognize. One for $2,000, one for $1,000, another for $1,800, all processed in the last 48 hours. All while she'd been in Vietnam. Sarah's hands started shaking. She tried to call her bank. The international call wouldn't connect. She tried the app's chat feature. A bot responded with automated messages about fraud protection. She needed to speak to a human. She needed to understand what was happening. She called David, straight to voicemail. She texted him, "Emergency. Call me." No response. The hotel phone rang. Sarah jumped. She answered. The voice on the other end spoke in accented English. "Miss Mitchell, this is the front desk. There's a gentleman here to see you. He says it is urgent." "Who is it?" Sarah asked. He did not give a name. "He says he is a friend of Mr. Nguyen. Tell him I'm not available. He is very insistent, miss. He says it concerns your visa." Sarah's blood went cold. "My visa? What about it?" "Perhaps you should come down and speak with him." "No. Tell him to leave a message." "As you wish, miss." Sarah hung up. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. She went to the peephole, looked out into the empty hallway. Nothing. She checked her phone again. Still no response from David. She tried Emma. It rang and went to voicemail. "Emma," Sarah said, her voice cracking. "Call me back. Something's wrong." She wedged a chair under the door handle like she'd seen in movies, not even sure if it would work. She sat on the bed, staring at her phone, waiting for David to call back, waiting for Emma to wake up, waiting for an explanation that would make sense of the money disappearing from her account and the stranger downstairs who knew her name. Around 1 in the morning, she tried to book an earlier flight home. Her credit card was declined. She tried another. Declined. She tried calling the credit card company. Same problem as the bank, no human available, just automated systems that couldn't help her. At 2:17 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. They stopped outside her door. She held her breath. The door handle turned. Once. Twice. She wanted to scream, but her throat had closed up. She grabbed her phone, started to dial the front desk, then stopped. The front desk had sent someone up earlier. Could she trust them? The footsteps moved away. Sarah waited. Silence. She crept to the peephole. The hallway was empty. She went back to the bed, pulled her knees to her chest, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. When gray light finally started filtering through the window, she was still sitting there, her phone dead in her hand. She plugged it in, waited for it to turn on. The moment it did, she opened her messages and typed to Emma with shaking fingers. "I think I made a mistake." She hit send. Then she sat there in the strange hotel room, 7,000 miles from home, and waited for morning to tell her what came next. Morning came, but brought no relief. Sarah sat on the edge of the hotel bed, watching the alley below fill with the sounds of a city waking up. Motorbikes. Vendors setting up carts. The clatter of shutters being raised. Normal sounds. A normal day for everyone except her. Her phone showed 6,042 a.m. The battery was at 18%. She'd plugged it in too late, and the charge was climbing slowly. Emma still hadn't responded to her message. Of course not. It was 4 in the afternoon yesterday in Portland. Emma would be at work. Wouldn't see the message for hours. Sarah pulled up her banking app again, hoping somehow the numbers had changed, that it had been a glitch. But no. Her savings account still showed 8047. Her credit card still wouldn't process. She tried to think logically through the panic. Identity theft happened. People's accounts got hacked. This wasn't necessarily connected to David, except she knew it was. The timing was too perfect. She'd given him her passport, her wallet. He photographed everything. At 7, she tried calling him again. This time, the number didn't even ring. Disconnected. Like the phone had been turned off or the SIM card removed. She pulled up their message history, scrolling back through weeks of conversations. All still there. Photos of the city he'd sent. Voice messages. Everything felt real. How could it not be real? She needed to think, to make a plan. First, get to the U.S. Embassy. They could help with the banking issue, maybe even verify David's identity. Second, contact her bank directly, somehow. Third, get out of this hotel. The front desk had sent someone to her room last night, someone who'd mentioned her visa. That didn't feel safe. Sarah started packing, throwing clothes into her suitcase without folding them. Her hands were still shaking. She needed to eat something, but the thought of food made her nauseous. She needed to sleep, but adrenaline was keeping her wired and jittery. A knock at the door made her freeze. She crept to the peephole. A hotel employee in uniform, a woman this time, holding a tray. "Room service, miss." "I didn't order anything," Sarah called through the door. "Complimentary breakfast." From the management. Sarah didn't open the door. "Please leave it outside." "Thank you." The woman set the tray down and walked away. Sarah waited 5 minutes before cracking the door open. The tray held a pot of coffee, a croissant, and a small bowl of fruit. It looked innocent enough. But Sarah couldn't shake the paranoia. She left it untouched. At 8003, there was another knock, more insistent this time. Sarah looked through the peephole and saw 2 men in plain clothes. One was stocky and middle-aged with a mustache. The other younger, thinner, with sharp eyes. The older one held up an identification card to the peephole. "Miss Mitchell," he called. "Vietnamese police. We need to speak with you about your visa application." Sarah's mind raced. She hadn't applied for a visa beyond the standard tourist entry. "What's this about?" she asked through the door. "We need to see your passport and visa documentation. There's been a complaint filed." "What kind of complaint?" "Please open the door, miss. This will be easier if we can speak properly." Every instinct, Sarah had screamed not to open that door. "Can I see your identification again?" The man held it up. Sarah couldn't read most of it. The seal looked official, but she had no way to verify it. "I need to call the U.S. Embassy first," she said. The younger man said something in Vietnamese to his partner. The older one responded, then spoke to Sarah again. "You can call them from the station. We need you to come with us now." "I'm not going anywhere until I speak to someone at the embassy." "Miss Mitchell, you are making this difficult. The complaint is serious. Immigration fraud. If you do not cooperate, we will have to escalate this matter." "Immigration fraud? I haven't done anything wrong." "Then you have nothing to worry about. Come to the station, we will clear this up." Sarah backed away from the door. She grabbed her phone and searched for the U.S. Embassy number in Ho Chi Minh City. Her fingers fumbled on the screen. She found it, dialed. It rang and rang. Then a recorded message. "Thank you for calling the U.S. Consulate General in Ho Chi Minh City. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. For emergencies involving U.S. citizens, please press 1. She pressed 1. Another recording. "If this is a life-threatening emergency, please hang up and dial 113 for local police assistance. For all other matters, please leave a message, and we will return your call within 1 business day." 1 business day. Sarah wanted to scream. She left the message anyway, her voice cracking. "This is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a U.S. citizen, and I think I'm in danger. I'm at." She realized she didn't know the name of this hotel. She looked around frantically for hotel stationery. Found it. The Harmony Hotel on Bui Vien Street. "Someone is claiming to be police and trying to get into my room. My bank accounts have been compromised. I need help. Please call me back." She gave her number and hung up. The men were still outside. She could hear them talking in low voices. Then footsteps moving away. She looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Sarah sat on the floor with her back against the door and finally let herself cry. Real, gasping sobs that she'd been holding back since she'd seen her bank balance. She was in a foreign country where she didn't speak the language. Her money was gone. The man she'd come to meet had vanished. People were showing up at her door claiming to be police. And Emma, her sister, who would know what to do, who would tell her to get on the next plane home, wouldn't even see her message for hours. She cried until she had nothing left. Then she wiped her face, stood up, and tried to think. The embassy message said to call 103 for life-threatening emergencies. Was this life-threatening? She didn't know. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe those were real police and she just made everything worse by not cooperating. But something fundamental in her gut said no. Something was very wrong. At 10 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number, Vietnamese country code. She almost didn't answer. Then did. Sarah? A woman's voice, American accent. Thank God. This is Consular Officer Jennifer Walsh from the U.S. Embassy. We got your message. Are you safe right now? Sarah's relief was so profound she almost started crying again. I don't know. I think so. I'm in my hotel room. I barricaded the door. Okay, listen to me carefully. Do not open your door for anyone claiming to be police unless they have official documentation and you can verify their credentials by calling the district station directly. What's happened? Sarah explained everything in a rush. The dating app, David. The changed hotel, her missing money, the men this morning. It all sounded insane when she said it out loud. Like she was the stupidest person alive. Like she deserved whatever was happening to her. Officer Walsh listened without interrupting. When Sarah finished, there was a long pause. Mitchell, she said finally, I think you've been targeted by an organized fraud ring. We've seen similar cases, the romance scam escalating to identity theft. What you're describing with the fake police is a common tactic to intimidate victims. What do I do? First, stay where you are. Don't leave your room. I'm going to send someone from our office to pick you up within the hour. They'll bring you to the embassy. We'll help you file a police report with the actual Vietnamese authorities and contact your banks. Do you have your passport? Yes. Good. Don't let anyone take it. Do you have money? Cash. Sarah checked her wallet. About $40 US and maybe 200,000 dong, roughly $8. Not much. That's not going to last long. The officer paused. Listen, I need to be honest with you. Getting your money back is going to be difficult. Most of these operations are sophisticated. They move money through multiple accounts, often internationally. But we'll do everything we can. Right now, the priority is getting you somewhere safe. What about David? Can you find him? We can try. Do you have photos? Any identifying information beyond what he told you? Sarah pulled up their message history, screenshots of his profile, the photos he'd sent, his phone number that was now disconnected. I have all of this. Send it to me. The officer gave her an email address. Everything you have. We'll pass it to Vietnamese authorities. Miss Mitchell, I have to ask, did you give this person access to your financial accounts directly? No. Sarah felt sick. He photographed my passport and credit cards. He said it was for booking a trip. That's all they need. Passport number, credit card details. With that, they can make charges, sometimes even apply for loans in your name. You need to call your bank as soon as possible. Have them freeze everything. I tried. I can't get through to a person. Keep trying. Use the international number to tell them it's fraud. They have to help you. After they hung up, Sarah did exactly that. She called her bank again. This time, after navigating through 5 automated menus and waiting on hold for 20 minutes that ate through her phone battery, she got a human, a tired-sounding woman named Patricia who listened to Sarah's story and put her on hold 3 more times. Finally, Patricia came back. Ms. Mitchell, I've frozen all your accounts. The withdrawals you mentioned were processed as wire transfers to an account in Singapore. We'll start an investigation, but I need to be honest with you. International wire transfers are very difficult to reverse, especially after 48 hours. So the money's gone. Most likely, yes. I'm sorry. Sarah thanked her and hung up. She sat there, numb. $6,000. Not a fortune, but it was everything she'd saved over the past year. Every freelance project. Every time she'd chosen to stay home instead of going out. Every careful decision to build something stable. Gone. At 10:47, her phone buzzed. Emma. Finally. Oh my God, Sarah, what's happening? What mistake? Are you okay? Sarah called her. Emma picked up immediately. Sarah, where are you? Your message scared me. Sarah told her everything. Emma listened, and Sarah could hear her sister crying on the other end. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" Emma said. "Why didn't you tell me something was wrong?" "I thought I could handle it. I thought maybe I was overreacting. You need to come home, right now. Get to the airport. The embassy is sending someone. I'm going there first." "Good. Stay there. Don't leave until you can get on a plane. I'm looking up flights right now. There's one tonight at 9 p.m. Can you make that?" Sarah looked at her frozen bank accounts. "How am I supposed to pay for it?" "I'll pay for it." Emma's voice was fierce. "I'm booking it right now. Just get to the airport." "What about David? Don't we need to find him? Report him?" "Sarah, forget David. David doesn't exist. Whoever you were talking to, whatever you thought you knew about him, it was all fake. Everything, the photos, the job, the apartment, all of it. People like that, they're professionals. They do this for a living. The police can look for him, but right now, you need to get somewhere safe." Emma was right. Sarah knew she was right, but part of her still couldn't accept it. 3 months of conversation, hours of video calls, his face, his voice, his stories. How could all of that be fake? The embassy car arrived at 11,015. A Vietnamese driver and an American woman in her 30s who introduced herself as Karen from Consular Services. Sarah grabbed her suitcase and passport and followed them down. The front desk staff watched her leave with neutral expressions. Sarah wondered if they'd been paid off. If they'd known all along what was happening. The embassy was a fortress compared to the shabby hotel. Concrete barriers, security checkpoints, American flags. Sarah had never been so relieved to see American flags in her life. Inside, Karen led her to a small office where Officer Walsh was waiting. She was younger than Sarah expected, maybe 40, with short dark hair and kind eyes. They spent 2 hours going through everything. Officer Walsh took notes, printed out Sarah's emails and messages with David, explained the process for filing reports with both Vietnamese police and Interpol, asked questions Sarah didn't have answers to. "Did you notice anyone following you?" "No." "Did David ever mention anyone else by name?" She couldn't remember. "Did he ever ask about your family's financial situation?" "Maybe." She wasn't sure. Eventually, Officer Walsh sat back. "Ms. Mitchell, I want to manage your expectations. The person you knew as David Nguyen is almost certainly not Vietnamese. These operations are often run from other countries entirely. Eastern Europe, West Africa, sometimes even from U.S. cities. They use stolen photos, fake profiles, voice modification software. The video calls you had were probably real-time, but that doesn't mean the person was who they claimed to be. But his apartment, the view, the city, could have been a hotel room, a rented space, or even stock footage if the calls were short and the quality poor. These people are very, very good at what they do." Sarah felt something break inside her. The last piece of hope that maybe this was a misunderstanding, that David was real and there was an explanation. What happens now? "We filed reports with the Vietnamese National Police and with Interpol. They'll investigate, but I won't lie to you. The chances of recovering your money or finding the perpetrators are very slim. These rings operate across borders. They use false identities. They move money through layers of accounts designed to obscure the trail. The best outcome is that your case helps identify patterns that prevent future victims. So he just gets away with it." Officer Walsh's expression was sympathetic. "Usually, yes. I'm sorry." They arranged for Sarah to stay in a hotel near the embassy, one they'd verified was safe. Emma had indeed booked her on the 9 p.m. flight. Karen would drive her to the airport. In the meantime, Sarah had 6 hours to kill in a city that no longer felt like an adventure, just a place where she'd been stupid, where she'd trusted someone who'd seen her as nothing but a mark. She spent those hours in her hotel room, scrolling through her messages with David one more time, looking for the signs she'd missed. They were there. She could see them now. The way he'd discouraged her from making local friends, the way he'd isolated her from other tourists, the convenient emergencies, the way he'd photographed her documents, the resistance to them appearing in photos together, the insistence she leave her phone behind. Every red flag, obvious in retrospect, invisible at the time. At 6 p.m., Karen picked her up. The drive to the airport was quiet. Sarah stared out the window at the city she'd imagined exploring with David, the markets they'd talked about visiting, the beaches he'd promised to show her. All of it hollow now. Props in a performance designed to extract money from lonely people. At the airport, Karen walked her through check-in, made sure she got through security. Before leaving, she put a hand on Sarah's arm. "This wasn't your fault," she said. "These people are professionals. They study psychology. They know exactly how to build trust. How to exploit vulnerability. You're not the first person this has happened to, and you won't be the last. Sarah nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She made it through security, through the duty-free shops, to her gate. The flight was delayed by an hour, then two. She sat in the hard plastic chair and watched families and business travelers and backpackers, all of them with their own reasons for being here, their own stories. None of them probably as stupid as hers. The flight finally boarded at 11,000 TPM. Sarah found her seat, middle row, middle seat, surrounded by strangers. As the plane taxied toward the runway, she looked out the window at the lights of Ho Chi Minh City spreading to the horizon. Somewhere down there was the hotel where she'd spent her last night. Somewhere was David, or whoever he really was, probably already working on his next victim, probably using the same lines, the same photos, the same carefully constructed personality. The plane lifted off. Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were over water, nothing visible below but darkness. She was going home. She was safe. But she'd left more than money behind in Vietnam. She'd left her trust, her willingness to be vulnerable, her belief that people were fundamentally good. Emma was waiting at Portland International when Sarah's flight landed 23 hours later. She didn't say "I told you so," didn't ask questions, just hugged her sister and held on while Sarah cried in the arrivals hall, surrounded by the buzz of normal life continuing around them. In the weeks that followed, Sarah would learn that her case had been added to a database of similar scams, that her story matched patterns involving at least 40 other women across 12 countries, that the profile photos of David Nguyen belonged to a real person, a Vietnamese-American tech worker in San Jose who had no idea his face was being used to defraud people, that the apartment in the video calls had been identified as a short-term rental in Manila, not Ho Chi Minh City, that the man she'd been talking to, if it was even one man and not several people trading off, had never been found. She would learn that two of the women who'd been scammed had also traveled to Vietnam. One had been robbed at knife point. The other had disappeared for 3 days before being found drugged in a hotel room. Her passport and money gone, but otherwise physically unharmed. Sarah had been lucky. Officer Walsh told her that. He got out before the worst could happen. But Sarah didn't feel lucky. She felt hollowed out. Broken in a way that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with the fact that she'd believed in something that never existed. She'd flown 7,000 miles for a ghost. She'd imagined a future with a carefully constructed lie, and somewhere, someone was laughing at how easy it had been. 3 months after returning home, Sarah received a letter from the Vietnamese National Police. The investigation had been closed, no suspects identified, no money recovered, case file archived. She read it once and threw it away. 6 months later, Emma convinced her to see a therapist, someone who specialized in fraud victims. The therapist told her what Officer Walsh had said, that it wasn't her fault, that she'd been targeted by professionals, that anyone could have fallen for it. Sarah heard the words but didn't believe them. She knew she'd been chosen because she was lonely, because she wanted something badly enough to ignore the warning signs, because she'd been desperate to believe someone could want her that much. A year after Vietnam, Sarah was still in Portland, still freelancing, still living in the same studio apartment, but she'd deleted all her dating apps, stopped answering when Jessica suggested blind dates, built walls so high around herself that even Emma struggled to get through sometimes. She was safe, careful, protected, and absolutely, completely alone. She told herself it was better this way, safer, that she'd learned her lesson about trust, about vulnerability, about believing in things that sounded too good to be true. She told herself she was fine. But sometimes, late at night, she'd think about that moment in the airport in Ho Chi Minh City, the moment before everything fell apart, when she was still scanning the crowd for David's face, when she still believed he was real, when she was still capable of hope, and she'd wonder if maybe the worst thing the scam had taken wasn't her money at all. Maybe it was the version of herself who'd been brave enough to book that ticket, who'd believed that love, or something like it, might be waiting on the other side of the world, that Sarah Mitchell, hopeful and reckless and willing to try, had died in room 412 of the Harmony Hotel. The one who'd come home was someone else entirely. Someone who knew better. Someone who would never make that mistake again. Someone who survived, but at a cost that no investigation could quantify and no police report could document. She was alive. But in all the ways that mattered, something had ended in that hotel room in Vietnam. And unlike her savings account, there was no fraud department to call, no way to recover what had been stolen. Just the slow, careful work of learning to live with the loss, of accepting that some things, once taken, could never be restored.